Tulsa Geological Society. We're planning for in 2027 the AAPG Mid-Continent sectional meeting is coming back to Tulsa. So I want you there, Peter. But it's a pretty fun time, So I love being involved and just hearing what's going on in the industry. Obviously, bettering myself, getting smarter, better at my job.
All right. Welcome to Local Energy. My name is Peter Brecht. I'm here with my co-host Wade Spear, and I'm so excited today. We're talking to Dylan Morton at MidCon Energy. I normally spend hours and hours and hours before interviews, Dylan, to figure out what we're going to talk about. But when you and I got on our pregame call, I was like, oh, this is just going to be a natural, fun conversation. It's snowing in Oklahoma. I know that from both you and Wade now. So, bring us up to speed and what's new and exciting in your world.
Well, the snow has been pretty cool. We typically don't get a lot of snow here in Oklahoma. I think Wade can speak to that as well. But I think where I live here in southeastern Tulsa, we got about 10 inches. So that was fun. So yeah, I'm currently at home. But yeah, been enjoying that, being home, with the wife and the baby.
Good. That's a great time to, just being a dad and being present. Like you have no other choice, right? Outside of maybe doing some work here and there. So,
for sure.
So what are you doing these days? Tell us a little bit about your role, where you're working. Probably a better place to start would be your background. What got you into oil and gas, and then we'll get to the current.
Yeah, so, we kind of talked about it on our intro call, but I've kind of done a lot of different things. I started out at Oklahoma State University. I wasn't studying geology at first. I'm a geologist. And so I was studying marketing, and I honestly just was so bored with it. I think what got me interested in geology was as a business major, you have to take one science credit or something. So I got put into geology, and I went to that class and kind of fell in love with it. And I was like, you know what? I find this more interesting than what I'm currently doing. And, being early on in college, most people don't really know what they want to do. So I was like, I'll give this a try, switched over, kind of focused on petroleum and did some undergrad geochemistry research where I looked at stable isotopes and the weather patterns and how they affect different weather patterns, which was really interesting. And kind of tracing what water vapor comes from where, and presented that to a couple different conferences. And by the time I got done with my undergrad, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I kind of wanted to go into environmental, but wasn't really thinking a whole lot about petroleum. Ended up getting a job in Oklahoma City at a place called Reagan Smith. At the time, it was Energy Solutions. Now it's just Reagan Smith. But a lot of people know them. They are environmental and regulatory consulting firm, and they really focus on BIA and BLM type land. And so I was primarily working projects in Oklahoma and Wyoming, primarily the Powder River. And I was doing all kinds of things, submitting APDs. We helped Panther Energy, Wade, you might remember those guys here in Tulsa. We helped them submit 600 APDs up in the Powder River when the lease and land grab was going on up there. So if you submitted a permit, then you kind of held it, I think, at the time. I didn't really fully understand it. I just knew I was doing a lot of work for him. And I did that. We did burying beetle surveys for endangered species and all kinds of different surveys around Oklahoma, and went out to West Texas a few times, in Mexico, on field trips out there, doing all kinds of, site security diagrams. And at one point I was even doing, this is probably the most interesting thing I did there, I was doing ground penetrating radar surveys, GPR for short. So I kind of focused on some geophysics in undergrad and kind of had a good handle of GPR. And so we were doing GPR surveys to delineate unmarked burial graves in old Indian graveyards.
Wow.
Really? Yeah, so and at the time I was kind of joking, I was like, if I get this wrong, if I get this, marking wrong, I'm going to be haunted forever. But no, it was a really interesting job. I did a lot of things, got to view the oil and gas industry through the regulatory and environmental spectrum, which is way deeper than I ever thought, being a geologist.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Local Energy. Please remember to like and subscribe to us here on YouTube or Spotify, or check us out at localenergy.com. All right, back to the show.
So after, we came up to 2020, I was still working there, just had my bachelor's. And everyone knows what happened in 2020. COVID happened, and then I hung around until like August. We got really, really slow. Weren't submitting, permits, or that was kind of our bread and butter at the time. What made it our most of the money was coming in. So I got furloughed and decided to go. You couldn't really get a job anywhere at the time. So I was like, I'm really interested in doing oil and gas. I met my now wife, girlfriend at the time. She was a geologist that I met at OSU in undergrad, and her dad is actually a geologist. Worked at Chesapeake and a lot of other places, really good oil and gas geologists. And I kind of was like, you know what, maybe I want to do oil and gas. There's more money in it. It seems pretty cool. And so I went back and got my master's at Oklahoma State and studied under a really prolific professor called Jim Puckett. And he knows, MidCon geology like the back of his hand, and other places as well. Really good professor. So I focused on petroleum geology, and it's interesting. Geologists do a master's and it's thesis based, right? So you write a thesis, and a lot of masters are coursework based, kind of like a an undergrad. But for what I did was thesis based, so I was working on this 200-page thesis. The 2 years I was doing it, filing research, working in different software. And so I was looking at
what was the topic of your thesis?
So it was detrital zircon geochronology. So basically, I was looking at the Cottage Grove sandstone, which is a pretty prolific reservoir here in the Anadarko Basin. And I was looking at kind of right now where the Western Anadarko Basin, where all the Cherokee Shale is taking off right now. I was kind of looking in that area. That was my focus area. And so I was like, the question is with detrital zircons is where do these sediments that form this formation come from, and how did they get there? And through that, it kind of helps you with exploration, right? Because, I've always been told, that sand came from somewhere and it's going somewhere. So, just like any kind of, sandstone trend or play fairway, you can find deposits in there where you can drill and, they can be economic. So I use detrital zircons, you use those zircons and you date them, and they tell you, where they came from essentially. So I mapped and found out that, some of these grains for this sandstone came as far as the northern Appalachians, and they kind of came down through, the Illinois Basin, those basins on the way down. Some were deposited in the Ouachita Basin, which was then uplifted into the Ouachita Uplift, and then further eroded into the Anadarko Basin. So, geology is just really cool in my mind. So that was what I focused on, and I kind of incorporated into that some reservoir characterization type stuff to help with the petroleum, factor that in. But there's a lot of things you can do with, you always hear like source to sink, for different formations, and it does matter. It can help you delineate plays and find more productive wells. And I don't know if you guys saw the post. I had a post on Collide where I kind of spun in my thesis work into some really good wells that are being drilled out in Roger Mills County right now in the Tonkawa and Cottage Grove. One of them, the Tonkawa is being drilled by Sanguine, and the Cottage Grove is being drilled by Charter Oak. Sanguine's here in Tulsa. So I kind of tried to factor in and show, maybe the different grains, maybe the facies that are involved in these are a better facies, which is why they're seeing these really good results. So, yeah.
You gave us a lot to go off of there, but the question that when someone says something and you can't stop thinking about that one thing the whole time they're talking, okay, you go from marketing, okay, and I got a marketing degree, so I can agree with you. Completely worthless. The only good part about college for me was I got to keep being an athlete. I met my wife and I took some statistic courses. So the stats was great. Other than that, flip piece of paper. But you go from marketing and then you overnight you go into a whole different it's a whole different direction. I don't think many marketing majors are sitting there thinking I'm going to go, pick up rocks and become a geologist. I like that transition, but what made you want to go into marketing in the first place? And is there any skill set from that that you're now implementing in your daily life? Because it's, you know, you wouldn't think of doing it if unless there was like some part of you that was like, I like marketing, I like talking to people. Like, so maybe how do those worlds collide now for you?
Yeah, so I'm from Fairview, Oklahoma, real small town in northwest
Hmm.
Oklahoma, like 3,000 people. My mom runs a convenience store slash restaurant. I mean, it's all the above out there. But so I worked there all through, at the time, you could start working at like 14, and I had a motorcycle. So I would ride my motorcycle to work. So I worked there forever. So I dealt with people all day. I was, really kind of a people person because my mom was, right? I mean, she had worked there a long time. And so I liked all the, you would see all the marketing for different products. And I'm like, I can get a job anywhere with a marketing degree, you think, any kind of business. And so I was like, that'll open up so many doors. And I enjoy it. I thought I did, but really it was early on in college. I mean, like the first or second semester when I switched. So I didn't really get deep into the marketing classes and coursework. But that's where I started, was working at that store. I was kind of entrepreneurial when I was young. I started a mowing business when I was 13. I just liked people. I liked dealing with people. So that's kind of where it started.
Gotcha. And today I think you're pretty involved in like all kinds of different groups. And I mean, you're not, I think one thing that stood out to me when we were talking is I don't meet a lot of people that are, uh, you know, obviously, and I'm searching for people to come onto the podcast, right? But it was like we connected, and it was kind of like, man, like this guy's you're outgoing, you're trying to talk to people, you're trying to get in different places and have conversations about different things. So I just thought that was really cool. But another thing that you mentioned too that I just want to like I got to ask, and then I'll turn it over to Wade, or we can keep talking. You studied like so mentioned something about like rain and how the weather and all that stuff, right? And I
Yeah.
think you mentioned so I'm curious, like there's those companies now that are like doing like their seeding, or they're looking for, I think one's called Rainmaker, right? They're trying to like figure out how to make it rain in different parts. Like, did you get in any of that? I always wanted to talk about that subject, but I've never found anyone yet. But are
Yeah.
you familiar with any of that, or?
I'm familiar. I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Definitely heard of it because it's a pretty hot topic. But I know. So we were looking. So we had precipitation samples, and we would measure the stable isotopes in with the ICPM machine, and we would say the different level of isotopes would tell us something about where that precipitation originated, and a lot of it came from the Gulf Coast area, which makes
Okay.
so
Got it.
no, we didn't really get into the rainmaking or anything, which is interesting though. That would be interesting
Yeah,
to
I
see.
mean, for me, my sister's kind of a conspiracy theorist, so like I get those Instagram messages of
I was
like,
gonna say you've really
like,
been following some rabbit holes,
it's
Peter.
it's constant, right? I know. And Wade, Wade's like, okay, another one, but no, like,
Hey, I read the same things. I just don't go as deep into them.
well, she's gonna kill me if she ever heard this podcast, and she never listens. But she's my sister that's like just younger than me. I've got 5 younger siblings, but she's like and she's the most conspiracy theorist person. So she's always like, there's like look at these chemtrails and like and I'm like, all right, I got to get some real data, but I haven't been able to find it
Yeah.
yet. So, anyways, back to oil and gas, back to the regularly scheduled programming. We'll stop talking about the atmosphere here, but.
I had a question. So, it seems like with your path, like you graduated school and then kind of saw a slowdown in activity and stuff, and then went back to get your master's. And it seems like a lot of geologists I know have master's degrees. Either they were in school and graduated, and the industry was, the market was rough for getting jobs, and so they kind of went back to school for a couple of years. Do you think that I mean, is that kind of standard now, or where do you see that? Where do you see that going?
Yes and no, Wade. Like, I think it really depends on the market. What can you if is there such a need that you can get out? Because I have a friend that's the same age as me, and he got out with a bachelor's, and I mean he worked for BRG for 6 years, and now he's down in Tyler, Texas. And
Okay.
he didn't, like, while he was doing his bachelor's, he was doing well site geology, and he was just a really overachiever. For the most part, I've seen kids my age. I'm talking about people my age, not
Hmm.
can't call them kids because I'm not a kid. But, typically they go right into the master. They want to get
Right.
it done. Because
Right.
they have their eyes set on that petroleum job, and you have to have it now. I mean,
Really.
you've had to have it for quite a while now. But like,
I got
and I
you.
know people that are probably a little bit older than me, more your guys' age, where they did their bachelor's and they got out and started working because they could. and then they
Right.
came back and got their master's, like you're saying,
I guess.
later on. So yeah, but now I kind of see it as being, one right after another. I mean, typically,
Gotcha. Yeah,
especially
the
if you
reason
want
why
petroleum.
I was gonna say that question came up because whenever I first started, working in the field like 2006 to 2010, I mean, for the most part, it was just growing, 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 and it didn't feel like it was necessary. But since then, it's kind of felt like that's maybe shifted a little bit, and it's a competitive advantage to be able to land a job. And so I didn't know if you felt like that was still the case or not, but it sounds like it definitely is. The other question I was going to ask
Yeah.
is in terms of like your day to day, like what are you really focused on right now? I mean, is it more exploration? Is it maybe scanning for uphole potential? Where does that kind of fall?
Primarily, MidCon does water floods, conventional,
Okay.
water flood assets. So it's a lot of exploitation, optimizing our current water floods. And we do a lot of deal assessment. I mean, we looked at a huge deal last year, way bigger than our company. I mean, it was in the ballpark at $250-300 million.
Gotcha.
So we just got outbid on it. But so it's, we evaluate deals all the time, and then we have some big floods up in the Powder and here in Oklahoma. I'm the only geologist right now at MidCon. Lots of optimization of water floods, and also looking for different off unit drilling opportunities or infill wells,
Right.
conversions, all the above, uphole stuff. Of course, if you have like a well that has a casing leak or something, you go look uphole and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of what I
Okay.
mainly focus on. We operate some horizontal wells, but we don't typically drill horizontal wells. We're
I gotcha.
MidCon's mainly conventional water flood assets for the most part.
So on stuff like that, I mean, you guys take them over after the drilling and completion is completed. Is that kind of the agreement you got when you say that you're operating horizontal wells?
Well, we bought an asset that had
Okay.
5 or 6 horizontal wells in it. We
I
bought
got
an asset in 2023 here in Oklahoma, and
Okay.
it's the Marchand field. The Marchand. I've been studying the Marchand for the past 2 to 3 years. So anything you want to know about the Marchand, I'm your guy. But yeah, so I have a lot of ideas there. I don't know. MidCon was public at one point, which is I told Peter this in our intro call. I mean, they were actually public at one point. They were a huge company, and
Right.
we're just small right now. So, like I said, we tried to buy an asset last year that was ginormous, and we closed on one in 2023. It's just been,
Right.
um, you know, got to find the right deal, right? That's the hardest part is finding a good deal, making it work, and making everyone happy. But yeah, I enjoy what I do. Water floods they require a lot of technical assessment,
Right.
not like the Woodford or something out in the Arkoma where you're just basically a drilling factory.
hmm
So I enjoy that. And by background, I haven't worked a ton of horizontals. On my master's, I studied the foundational geology, well log analysis, all the foundations in petroleum geology that set you up for success. And then I went and did an internship at Denbury, and
Okay.
they're CO2 EOR company.
Right.
I've done a lot of EOR, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and
I
I
gotcha.
enjoy it, but I do understand the horizontal stuff and the horizontal plays. So you try to be a well-rounded geologist, right? Everyone tries to
Right.
be that in their job. You can't silo yourself into one little thing, but I enjoy it all.
That's awesome. That's great.
You've traveled a lot of places and gone to, a lot of bases and things like that. But if you could live in Oklahoma, where you're at now, where would you go?
That's a good question. Are you saying like is it dependent on if I can get a job in oil and gas
No,
or
I
not?
mean,
Okay.
yeah, I mean,
I think
I'd say, we'd all live in Hawaii, I
Yeah.
think,
Would
or,
you rather go to
something like
Yeah.
Midland?
that,
Would you
right?
rather go to
But
Houston or
yeah.
Oh, Midland 100%. No, Eddy County, New Mexico.
no?
I think I mentioned this a little bit on our pre-call as well. You
Yeah.
said that you were from California. My wife would love to be in California. And I mean,
Yeah.
who doesn't like California, right? I mean, it's beautiful in terms of the
Sure.
scenery, the weather.
Yeah.
You could talk about politics and everything else another time, but
Yeah.
and we were in Plano, actually Frisco, when I was at Denbury, and we loved it down there. I mean, you're disconnected from Dallas by 30, 40 minutes. Although, everything's growing that way.
Oh yeah, it's
as
starting to
big cities
absorb
do.
it.
Dallas is going to be touching Oklahoma before too long. But I'd say
Yeah.
to make my wife happy, California. And I enjoyed California. And maybe Frisco would be kind of my top priorities.
Yeah, I think the only reason I'm still in California is because of my wife.
Okay.
And family obviously, but if it's like the amount of times I'm traveling or doing things now, it's like, all right. And obviously Zoom is great, like we can do Zoom calls all day long, or I can we can talk
Yeah.
to people on the phone, which is awesome, but to me nothing beats going and visiting people in person. So like I don't know, maybe it's the fact that COVID happened and then it's like the whole world kind of, but I'm like, I think I'm anxious to get out there and actually talk to people in real life again. Like I'll be I think I got like 3 weeks I won't be here, like just in the next couple weeks. It's like, it's just busy, and what Midland is one of those trips, which I'm excited for, believe it or not. So it's good. Yeah. So California, think about that. Oil and gas is probably not ideal out here, but
Yeah.
have you been watching Landman at all? That's my next question, because here's my problem with Landman, and I'm just gonna say it. My wife, we watched it. We didn't watch it. Okay, I'm not watching it. I'm not having nothing to do with it. We watch it, and then we get to the end of it, and she's like, what are we gonna do now? And I'm like, I don't know. Go back to reading books. I got work to do. Like we can go do
Yeah.
things, whatever. And she's like, no, like I've just been fun, like hanging out with you, watching the show. She's like, let's watch it again. And I'm like, my gosh. So
Wow, is there that much to like really digest?
it's not that. No, it's not. But she's
It's
like,
not that deep. All
I
right.
like it because like I get to sit here and ask you questions. She's like, I'm gonna ask you
Okay.
questions about things now. And she's like, so like she's like, so is that what you call a pump jack? And I'm like, yeah, that's a pump jack. Like, and I'm teaching, like,
Yeah.
she's like, and they mentioned a top drive in one of the bits, and so like I'm showing her, okay, like that's a top drive. I'm pulling out the diagram, and she's like, all right, like I'm like teaching my wife oil and gas stuff now. So great opportunity there, but I want to get your thoughts on it. Have you even watched it? I guess let's start there.
A few episodes. I have
Okay.
not.
All right.
We haven't been watching a ton of TV lately,
Right.
but
Smart. It's good for you.
I've seen a few episodes, and the episodes I did see, I liked it. I really
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
But yeah, not a.
Okay, fair enough. It's I think it feels like for me, and not that I don't I'm not an oil field guy. Like I don't ever want to portray myself as being that, but I talk about this stuff all day long, right? So it kind of feels
Yeah.
like you can never escape it, right? It's like, okay, now my team, even my entertainment is related to it, and that's just, it's interesting. But good stuff for the industry, I think.
It's
I
just
agree.
it's pulling you close so it can break your heart.
Wade, have you watched it?
No, I have not. I've not.
Yeah, but he's seen all these other movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wade's like, I'm living it every day.
Yeah, it's
I wouldn't know, but
he sees a lot. Like Wade's a movie guy, though. Like, don't get me wrong. Like
Yeah.
Wade's got like every movie that Wade has seen. Like we have a running list now of like movies that Peter has to watch because I don't watch
Okay.
movies, and so
I have friends
like
like that too.
yeah, and I'm like, and I guess I was sheltered, or I don't know. I'm not really I'm like kind of, I like to do things like I want to go build websites or go now Claude Code's out. Like I'm just like all these
Yeah.
things. I'm like, I like to play and learn, but there's some good movies that Wade's recommended, and I'm like, man, that was all right. I can see why that's a good movie. So
Yeah.
Sicario's next on my list, Wade. I might have to watch that.
Okay. That's definitely on the list right there. The other night
Yep.
I went to
Yep.
dinner with a bunch of engineers, and one of the guys that I was talking to, I mean, we almost had the exact same taste in movies. I mean, it was Interstellar, Sicario was up there. I mean, there was half a dozen movies that were all great ones. So, yeah, I'm trying to put you on the right
Yeah.
path there. All right, Peter.
Yeah, yeah. Yo, you're doing a good job. I mean, I hadn't even seen, it was Tombstone. Like I'd never seen, like who hasn't seen
Wow.
Tombstone? But I hadn't
Yeah.
seen Tombstone, so I don't know.
Friends that are just like you, so I understand. We always give them crap,
That's all
There's
right.
got to be that one in the group. Yeah,
Maybe you guys are more productive, like you said.
that's right. Read more books.
So what are you looking forward to most this year? I mean, obviously you've got family, you've got all these things going on, but is there anything in particular that you're like, man, 2026 is my year and this is why? Or is it kind of just feel like you're still getting into things? Is there anything you're looking forward to in particular?
And yeah, family is number one always. Being able to spend time with them and watch my son grow and be with them. But I'm always trying to network. Really, that's how I got the job I have now, and it's opened so many doors for me. And so I love to be involved with all the societies, like you said. Also Geological Society, my alumni board at OSU. We're planning for in 2027, the AAPG Mid-Continent Sectional Meeting is coming back to Tulsa. So I want you there, Peter. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty fun time, So I love being involved and just hearing what's going on in the industry. Obviously, bettering myself, getting smarter, better at my job. But yeah, I love networking. I just I like talking to people. I like hearing people's stories. Like, I don't know much about you guys, but I'd love to hear your whole life story. I'm just that kind of guy.
Yeah.
And find things in common, talk about what we've done, what we've been through.
You're very good at networking because whenever we connected on LinkedIn, there were like 50 people that we shared in connections with, and I pretty much every geologist I've ever worked with, you're also friends with. So, like Sam Roark and Mark Jensen and John Hill. I mean, it's all across the board. Oklahoma City, Tulsa, it didn't matter.
Yeah, and that's kind of I mentioned my father-in-law is a geologist too, so I've met a lot of people through him too, and being in Oklahoma City for a couple of years while I was at Reagan Smith helped too. So
Right.
yeah. And as you guys know, this oil and gas, especially your specific, geologists or engineers, it's such a small world. I mean, everyone knows everyone, which is actually cool in my opinion.
Right.
So when a bunch of geologists, like let's say you go to dinner with a bunch of geologists and you're sitting around a table, what do you guys talk about? Like what are some of these topics? Like to me, I would obviously learn a little bit, but I mean, like what is just absolute obsession with geology like bring to the table? Like what do you guys I don't know, just bring me into that conversation a little bit.
Rocks. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, the rock, I have I don't think I coined this term, but the stories and the stones, no, what are the new hot plays? What geology is making them tick? And that's going back to that post I had on Collide. That was kind of my curiosity there, and why I wrote that up was, what's making these work? Completions have come a long way since the cruddy wells that they were drilling out there in 2015, but they're likely getting into some conventional type facies that wasn't discovered then. People are always finding new plays, new rock, and yeah, that kind of is one of the hot topics I would say. That always comes up is what plays are you working on, what's making them tick, and talk endlessly about those type of things.
Are a lot of those conversations like open book, or are you like, hey, I'll share this, but I can't tell you that because it's sort of my IP, or like what does that look like?
Yes and no. Say, you can talk generally about a formation or, an area or, what kind of, depositional environment it is, none of that's, top secret. I haven't been involved with like, super, I haven't talked to anyone like Newburn or like someone that's, really into the Cherokee Shale and, would be tight-lipped about this or that, or, a new hot play in a different basin. So whatever we talk about is probably already pretty well known.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's just always, it's fun. Growing up, I got to be in some pretty cool rooms with some pretty great people, right? Even as like a teenager, my dad would take me to business meetings. I'd sit there, get to listen and kind of absorb, and like we taught me very young, like you don't ask questions, you don't talk, you just get to listen, right? And so it was always fun hearing what people would talk about, right? I think you can learn a lot by a group of people just by listening to the questions they ask and what they're willing to say and what they're not willing to, like there's a lot going on there, which is cool. So, but it sounds like the more that you're, talking to people, the more you share, the more everyone learns and gets to go do something, right? So it's cool. Awesome. Well, we're coming up on our 30-minute mark here, and I want to say thank you for coming on and for being with us today. But give us a hand up. Where should people find you, and where can we connect?
Yeah, you can find me at Collide. I'm sporting my hoodie.
Yeah, you are. Your big oil.
My big oil hoodie.
Yeah.
Hey man, do you guys have one of these? They are excellent quality.
They are.
I will
They're
tell
so
you
comfortable.
That much.
Yeah, they're comfortable.
But Collide, all LinkedIn. Basically those two.
Yeah.
Always on LinkedIn. I went and snooped around and found both you guys on there.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. No, those big ones, Wade, we got to get you one. But here's the thing. So I wore mine last night when we went out to dinner. My kids, when they Yeah, but what went out last night for dinner? My kids, like every month, I say, hey, if we have good, no, they're 3 and 6, so they're younger, but we teach them, good table manners. And our whole thing is like, hey, if you got good manners, every month we're gonna go out to dinner, right? And it's kind of a fun thing for them. We went out and got hamburgers, and I wore my big old sweatshirt, and I'm downtown Leucadia, which is like probably one of the most like hippie towns in California, right there on the coast. And I get out of the truck, and my wife's like, I didn't realize you were wearing that sweater, but you're going to get killed. And I was like, I was like, first of all, I said, no, because no one down here is actually going to try to do anything. I said, running into me is like hitting a brick wall. And the second thing is no one down, they might yell at me from like across the street, but no one's going to get in my face or do anything. So anyways, but it's my favorite sweater to wear. I love wearing it down here. It's kind of fun. It's edgy.
I get comments here in Tulsa too. Whenever I like to wear it out too, my wife will admit the same, and it's kind of fun to get the comments, honestly. But
I like having those those discussions, right? I mean, constantly like going back, and it sounds like I'm on Instagram all the time, but people post here about like how like oil and Sable offshore, like it shouldn't be here and stuff. And I love going in the comments and like asking people like, hey, look, I want to have a balanced conversation, right? So who should I be talking to? Who I'm not just listening to one channel. I want to actually talk to people that disagree with me, right? And so far, no one's had a good answer. No one could give me anyone by name that wants to talk with me. So anyways, you come across them, let me know. But
yeah, well, I was trying to think. We were one second. We were in whenever we went to California 2 New Years ago.
Yeah.
And the name of the city is escaping me. It's a
it
has all the oil wells on the coast right there.
Ventura, Santa Barbara. There's several of them. Carpinteria up there. Yeah.
I can't remember. It's gonna bug me now.
That's all right. We lost Wade. I think his battery overheated, but
yeah,
we can look it up.
I'm looking real quick.
Huntington Beach.
Huntington Beach. Thank you.
All right, that's a big one. Yeah, that's just 45 minutes north of me.
Yeah. So I mean, there was like oil wells in people's backyards pumping.
Yeah. And
it seemed like we went out to the strip, the bars on New Year's, and like everyone was honestly like very conservative. It was kind of shocking, and not just conservative, just like, they seemed like they were not against oil and gas, which, I don't really care, but it was just like seeing that in California was kind of shocking to me.
Yeah. Well, I just learned this from an interview we did a couple weeks ago, but Chevron actually like owns Huntington Beach. Like, I mean, it's
really?
like mostly, it's like, it's very, I mean, obviously there's houses and stuff there, but a lot of what happened in Huntington Beach was because of Chevron. And so a lot of rich history there. And one of my favorite pictures that I have, I've posted it before, but is off of Huntington Beach. It's it's a great surf shot. It's got in the background, you got the oil rigs, and it's really cool. So I don't know. I love it up there. It's a cool place. And it's just, man, like, do you want a house? It's starting at 2 million, So
yeah,
it's like, whew, it's hot. But anyways, Dylan, it's been amazing having you. I'm just so thankful that you were able to set the time aside and just and be here to talk with me anyway. But we'll see you on LinkedIn. We'll see you on Collide. And for everyone else, thank you for listening to Local Energy. We'll see you next week. All right.